Thunderbirds, Blue Angels, they're the highlight of every air show. But how do you get to be in the cockpit of a F-16 or an F-18? We're going to find out in the hangar. Hi, welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. Today's episode is brought to you by our awesome sponsors, Colton Mortgage and Flying Eyes Optics.
We thank you for being here. We're going to be talking about a very special thing. When you go to the air shows, it is the key act. It's the one thing everybody wants to see.
It's the pinnacle.
It's the pinnacle. And we have a Thunderbird pilot here with us. And actually, I've had him on the show before, and I never knew he was a Thunderbird pilot.
You know what? I have to admit, I didn't realize either.
Well, and then the case is like, how do you know if somebody's a Thunderbird or Blue Angel pilot? Well, they'll tell you, right?
Right. He never said a thing.
He never said a thing.
He never said a thing.
And that person who never said a thing, Richard McSpadden. Richard, thanks for coming back on the show.
Richard, you went up 5 cool points the minute I found out.
So good to see you guys. This show was so much fun last year. Thanks for having me back.
How in the world can a Thunderbird pilot be so humble and not tell everybody that you're a Thunderbird pilot?
Oh, I don't know, because there's so much else going on in the present. You know, that was the past. And
that was the past. Okay,
it's always more fun to live in the present.
So when were you a Thunderbird?
Do I have to say that? Do I have to go back?
I'm sorry, but yeah.
Like just a couple years ago, maybe.
Yeah, like
last year.
I guess it's all right.
Yeah, no, 2002, 2003.
Oh, okay, that's not that far back.
After right after 9/11.
I was in training when 9/11 happened. In fact, we weren't sure whether or not we were going to have a show. And as I remember, I think my first show season was truncated a little bit because of 9/11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about your background and how and when. I want to know the cathartic moment that you decided that that's what you wanted to do.
Fly fighters for the Air Force?
Yeah.
Pretty late, actually. I think I was in college, I grew up, and my dad loved aviation. And so even when I was a kid, remember remote control airplanes back in the day were really expensive. You had to build them out of balsa wood, and they had gas-powered engines. And so if you couldn't afford that, you had these airplanes that you had on a string.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And you'd stand in the middle, and fly the airplane all around. And I was horrible at it. I did not show early promise in aviation. And so my dad, my brother, and I would go out, and my dad would always make me go last because he knew once you give it to Richard, it's done. Our day's done.
It's going to be broken.
So, I grew up in an aviation family. I watched my dad. He learned to fly when he was 40, and huge AOPA member. And I still have a picture in my office of my dad and I back in, he had just turned over 40. My mom gave him a gift of a flight lesson, and he was, for like Father's Day or something, he was in his 40s. And so he just immediately loved it and took to it. And I was in high school at the time. Oh, wow. And college, going to college, and I saw how much he loved it, and so I started doing it. And then, we both got our licenses, and we're sitting there in our AOPA jackets. Mine's red and his is blue, and that's still one of my favorite pictures. Yeah.
Wait, how does one get an AOPA jacket?
Yeah.
That's
You have to go
know.
back 40 years.
Well, I got some pretty good
20 years.
Pretty good gear in our pilot store, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay, so you decided in college that, hey, flying for a living will be fun. What took it to fighters?
Like now, you can still do it this way. You can go to the Air Force Academy or the Navy Academy if you want to go that route, or you can go ROTC. Mm-hmm. And I was at the University of Georgia, national champions, you may have noticed. And it only took us 40 years, but so I was at the University of Georgia, and I joined ROTC, and I did a lot of athletics in high school, and my dad was a big influence. He said, hey, I think you'd really like to fly fighters. And right after I started flying, I started reading about it, and I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go fly fighters.
So your dad was a huge influence.
Big influence,
okay.
Yeah, huge
That's
influence
cool.
on me. Yeah, and so I got my inspiration from him, and then so did my brother. My brother's a 747 captain for UPS. And then he taught his son to fly, and I taught my son to fly. He taught his daughter to fly, and I taught my daughter to fly. So it's like generations now. And my mom's the one that started this all. She gave my dad
the gift
this gift,
of a discovery
and then
flight.
It's now 3 generations and going. So
That's pretty cool.
we're a pretty big aviation family.
Okay, so what took you from like that to now you're flying like in the Thunderbirds?
Yeah, so the way it worked then is when you went in Air Force pilot training, they would take the top, I think it was 10% of the time, and they would declare them fighter attack reconnaissance qualified. And so
How did they determine top 10%?
performance,
Performance.
Yeah. So it was, you knew back in that day, you just knew they would post, how you were doing. Grades were posted, flights were posted. It was a pretty brutal process. There was a lot of incentive to do well, because it was a very public process. And then once you go into the fighter community, then you have to build some years of experience, and you have your professional reputation with your performance reports and all that, and then you have your hallway reputation with what your colleagues think of you. And that's pretty important to get to either the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels.
Okay, so that got you to fighters.
Yeah.
Then what took you to Thunderbirds?
I didn't go till later in my career. I came in as the commander and flight leader of the Thunderbirds. And the way it happens is the Air Force sends out a message every 2 years and says, it's time to hire a new commander leader if you meet these qualifications, and you want to apply. And I just thought it would be a fantastic job. But I was relatively, quiet in my career. In other words, I loved flying fighters. I didn't do a lot of the things you should do for a career. I didn't go work in the Pentagon and all that. And so I didn't think I would qualify. So I'll never forget this. I threw it away because I thought, I just dreamed about it for a second. And I thought, man, can you imagine what that job would be like? And I just daydreamed about it, And then I threw it away, and I went for a jog. At the time, I did a lot of jogging. And then I thought, how could it be that I've come to a point in my life where something I would like to do so bad, I don't even have the courage to apply for it, And so I ran back in and pulled it out of the trash and applied, and, it all worked out. And it's an extensive process, too. It takes about a year.
Wow.
For the application to go through?
Yeah, you go through that, then you go visit with the team, and then there's a fly-off, and then you got to go meet with all, some higher-ups, because you're representing the Air Force. I took that very seriously, and the whole team does. The pride, precision of the United States Air Force. You're representing that in the way you fly and the way you conduct yourself. So, yeah, it's a pretty serious process, and it needs to be. Yeah.
Okay, so you got to do air shows then?
Yeah, I think I did. Over 100 or so in a couple years, 100 and something performances, flying the #1 airplane. And it was a fantastic job because you're flying the lead airplane, so you're flying one of the best fighter airplanes ever built. And you're all dressed up in red, white, and blue. Your airplane's red, white. I was very patriotic in my family and how we grew up. And so to just wear that and sort of immerse yourself in this patriotism was just fantastic feeling for me. So I loved doing that. And then you're a squadron commander. So the days were really long. So you got a 125-person outfit or so. And you got HR and budgeting and all the things that come with that, and maintenance and logistics. And so you're doing that by night, really, and you're flying by day, because in training season, you fly 3 times a day, when you're learning the profile and you're building together as a team. And we can talk about that if you like how does the team come together where they get so tight and so low and so fast,
I do, but I want to know if your dad ever got to see you perform in an air show.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the world has good karma, I think. So one of my earliest memories is walking on Tyndall Air Force Base flight line in Panama City, Florida, on my dad's shoulders, and we were going to see the Thunderbirds perform.
Oh, cool.
I think they were in F-4s at the time. And I just have a very, very vivid memory of where that was and seeing that. So when I got the call that I had been selected for the Thunderbirds, I was an operations officer on Tyndall Air Force Base. And so I walked back. Wow. I'll get choked up talking about it. I walked back to that same spot and called my dad and said,
my gosh.
Dad, I'm Thunderbird 1. And that was really a meaningful moment for us.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I was going to say for the 16, 17-year-old, which certainly, but for the 22-year-old, 23-year-old who wants to become a Thunderbird pilot or a Blue Angel pilot, what do they need to do?
Yeah, so the first path is to get into military aviation and aviation. You need to, do well in school and get a college degree. And you don't have to go to the academies. You can go to ROTC like I did. And I did relatively late. I didn't start till I was a sophomore in college, so I had to double up ROTC courses. Or after you graduated, you can go to officer training school and then enter. So some way you got to have a degree and a commission and get into flight training. And then once you get into flight training, it's just like what you're going through and what you did in IOE. You just wake up every day and you give it 100% your best. I mean, I follow you on Facebook, right? And so I was seeing you go through IOE, and you just wake up every day and you just give it your best. And some days your best is great, and some days it lacked, but you get up the next day and you do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are the odds? In other words, for the young person who wants to do it, what are the kind of odds? Like 100 apply and 2 make it. What are they looking at?
I don't remember. I mean, a lot of people apply, but we're very careful when they say it's the best of the Air Force. It's the best of the people who applied for the job. There's tremendous pilots in the Air Force and the Navy that don't decide to fly for the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. And in all honesty, all those maneuvers that you do, every Air Force pilot can do them. Everyone can do them. You just do them lower, faster, tighter formations because that's your job and you do it every day. So, that's the primary difference.
So that's how you train for it. Effectively, you guys go in, you start with like a loose formation, and then you just practice getting closer and closer?
Yeah, you start out by yourself learning the profiles, especially in the lead airplane. And then once you can fly through that, and I've forgotten, Christy, how many maneuvers there are. I can tell you the show's 32 minutes long, or it used to be in my day. And then once you can do that, because there's no time to look on a cheat sheet or a play card, you have to fly that whole profile through memory. And every maneuver, as you guys know, has speeds and altitudes that you hit to go in them. They have halfway points, they have abort points, so there's a lot of study. And then once you get that by yourself, then they'll add a wingman that's pretty far apart. And then, once you get that down, they'll add another wingman, and then you lower it. And then you add another wingman, and then you lower it. And you're still pretty far apart at this point. And by pretty far apart, probably 3 to 5 feet, somewhere in there. And by the time you all finish, when you got 6 airplanes and you're flying the Delta formation and you're going down to within 200 feet and you're 500 miles an hour rolling and looping, you're probably in some formations as close as 18 inches.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's and that is it's a powerful feeling for a team when you can do that together and trust each other on that level.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing feel. People ask all the time, you flew that same profile over and over and over again. So the typical week is you would leave for a show site on maybe a Thursday, Thursday. And then you'd arrive and take a look at the field. And then on Friday, you'd get up and go to schools or do some PR event. And you'd fly a practice show Friday afternoon, go to some PR event, public relations event Friday night. Saturday, as the commander, I would get up and do work, performance reviews and budgeting and all that, and then fly the air show in the afternoon, go to a PR event. Sunday, fly the air show, and then Monday, fly home, and then more work, and then Tuesday, take off, and then Wednesday fly a practice show and do it all again. We never went more than 2 or 3 days without flying a show.
That's probably a good thing, because
Yeah.
pilot atrophy is a real thing, and especially in a situation like this.
Yeah.
So how long is that training profile usually from start to air shows?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the most challenging and demanding part is the training season, because you're flying 3 times a day, and you start in about November, and you're really not ready to go on the road till about March, and your first air show's mid-March, mid to end of March usually.
That's soon, though.
Yeah.
I mean, even you think about it. I mean, I know you're flying 3 times a day, but that just, it seems to me like you would need like a year or 2 years of training. But no, they're throwing you in like 4 months.
Yeah, well, it's important. Everybody comes in with a really solid base of
They know how to fly those maneuvers.
fly the way the Air Force flies, and so all that's done and taken care of, right?
Gotcha,
And then,
okay.
and I know, and you guys do that in the airlines, right? There's a standardization that it doesn't matter who you're flying with on any given day. You do it the same way, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of safety in that. And so there was a lot of safety in that for us.
Awesome.
All right, I want to personally, scariest moment in Thunderbirds or in fighters?
The scariest moment for me is an easy one because in my year in 2003, in September, Mountain Home Air Force Base, you may have seen this picture. There's a picture of a guy in an F-16 that's ejecting out, and he ejected within, I think it was 0.8 of a second of the airplane hitting. There's also a video of him ejecting out of the cockpit. Well, that was my team. And so I was in the diamond formation. We had made a diamond takeoff, and the way it worked is if this is the runway, the diamond takes off and it comes down and it's going to come in perpendicular to the runway. And then he takes off and does a split S. And your whole work there is, my job is to deconflict from him, let him give enough time to do the split S before I come over. Well, by the time I turn the corner, all I see is just a line of fire, and I hear people yelling, "Knock it off, Thunderbird 6 has gone in." And if you're an air show pilot, you hate line of fire like that because it usually means the pilot tried to stay with it and didn't get out. The smoking hole is, you don't want to see any of them, but you'd rather see the smoking hole than the line of fire. And so that was one of the worst moments, probably the worst moment of my life. I knew him well. I loved him and his family, and the first thing I thought of was his family and his children. And then within maybe 30 seconds, I had the best moment of life when they said, Thunderbird 6 is standing up and waving at the crowd.
Oh, man.
Good.
Yeah, and it's just an amazing, and it's we could do an episode on that event itself because the fact that he survived that, by no model anywhere with where he ejected does he survive. Any way you look at it, he's a dead man, he doesn't make it. And he made it, and he survived basically without a scratch.
I was going to say, did he have serious injuries?
No.
That's insane.
Yeah,
wow,
absolutely
good for him.
Miraculous. And he is a very spiritual person, and so it's absolutely miraculous that he survived that.
Did they figure out what happened, why that happened?
Yeah, in essence, if you have a digital watch, have you ever looked at your watch and looked at it and thought it's 2:20 and actually it was 3:20? You were just looking at the minute hand and you didn't look at the hour hand. Have you ever had that happen? In essence, he just misread his altimeter, is what we think. Air Force Investigation Board came in and looked at that whole thing for a long time, and they couldn't figure it out. I mean, they could figure out what he did. He just rolled too early and pulled without enough space to make the maneuver. But why he did it, it's just, remains a mystery. And here was a guy who, he must have flown that maneuver hundreds of times, and we would call it ringing the bell. You go up and you have to reach a minimum altitude before you pull through any over-the-top maneuver. And we'd call it, you go up, you ring the bell, meet your minimum altitude, and come back down. And he would ring the bell when we went back and looked at all of his tapes to see, we have an obligation to see
a pattern or something.
Yeah, was he cheating? Was he undisciplined? Was there some problem there? He was unbelievably consistent, and he never cheated. He never missed it. If he did, he would abort. And he was unbelievably consistent within like 50 feet of how he would hit that altitude. And on that day, he just misread his altimeter. We had come from a show that was at a different density altitude. It was in the summertime, it was very hot. So his mental clock was probably off in terms of where he thought about it. It felt like it was time to pull and roll. So, that's what we think.
Well, talk about mental clock. You guys have to be so on. Do you have standby pilots because somebody's having a bad day and I really can't fly this show, but the show must go on?
No, there's only 6. Only 6 are trained to do the show, and if any pilot drops out, you have a 5-ship show that you run, except for the lead pilot. If the lead pilot drops out, nobody flies. There really is no way to stand in somebody for that.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, Richard, I have to ask, are there any female Thunderbirds?
Yeah. The way the team is set up is you have 12 officers and then about 120 or 110 or so enlisted personnel. We've had females in every part of those ranks, including the 6 demonstration pilots. I think it was around 2005 we had our first woman fly in the demonstration, one of the 6 demonstration pilots.
And that's why you were the commander.
No, I was in 2002 and 3,
okay.
And then the person after me hired the first female in to fly the demonstration, and she was in the diamond formation, I believe. But since then, we've had them in every part of the formation, including as one of the solos. In fact, last year the lead solo was a female.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned diamond and lead solo. I know the diamonds 1, 2, 3, 4, and the others are 5 and 6, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so really 5 and 6 is a more prestigious position than 2, 3, or 4?
Oh, you're in dangerous territory now. There's a lot of fun camaraderie between the diamond and the solos. So the diamond always flies together, and the solos, of course, are always flying. So they're the guys that are always, with their hair on fire, flying by themselves.
Right.
So there's a lot of fun spirit that happens between that group, the diamonds and the solos.
And I see you didn't answer my question.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, well, and I would always answer that in the squadron by saying I'm a Delta guy, right? So, and that is you have the diamond and then you have the solos. And for most of the show, you have the diamond and the solos, coming and deconflicting. And what we wanted to do in the Thunderbirds was we always wanted to have no more than 30 seconds from smoke off to smoke on between maneuvers. So there's always something going on, very fast-paced action. But at the end of the diamond and the solos, then the solos join the diamond, and that becomes the delta. So
I see.
whenever
You're a
this
Delta guy.
rivalry
You're
would
with
take
everybody.
place, I'd say, well, I'm a Delta guy.
Well, and speaking of rivalries, what's it like between Thunderbird pilots and Blue Angel pilots?
We have a lot of fun, as you might imagine. And I got to tell you, I'm really, really proud of those guys because they have fought and scratched and clawed their way to be the second best jet demo team in the there's a lot to be said for that. So every year or so, the two teams will have a meetup where we close it to the public. It's not open to anybody. And we will fly for each other and with each other in our back seats and all that. There's a lot of interaction between the two teams, a lot of mutual respect. And that particular event where we get together and have that, as you can imagine, there's a lot of flying. And then when the flying's done, there's an awful lot of fun after that.
I can only imagine. Yeah. So, as a journalist, what would it take to get in the backseat of a Thunderbird?
It's easier than you would think. If you, especially you, with the reach you have here, and I'm happy to put you in touch with them.
Please do.
Reach out to the public
me?
affairs team.
I don't know you.
No,
I'm busy right now.
Yeah, and they are very, they really are a public relations team. That's why
Right.
they exist, for recruiting and public relations. And so they look for opportunities to take people like you that can help them get the message out about the great things the Air Force does and the great opportunities that you have there.
Okay, so for that kid out there watching that wants to become a Thunderbird pilot, what piece of advice would you tell him or her?
Yeah, I would just say, like me, don't be afraid to set that dream and that bar high because you can do it.
Don't throw away the.
live and prove,
Don't
you
throw
know.
Yeah, the.
Yeah, that's right.
Application.
Yeah, don't throw it away thinking, oh, wouldn't that be so great? I would never qualify to do that. And then, you just wake up every day and you give it your best and be forgiving of yourself. Some days your best isn't very good. Get up and do better tomorrow, right? But keep the goal and keep striving.
Yeah, that's a great message. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much again for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise.
And you guys, thank you for watching, and please like, share, subscribe. And for you out there that's wanting to be a Thunderbird, you can do it. You just got to go after it and give it your best. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
In the hangar.